Greetings, Sorcerers. Welcome back to the Contested Realm. My name's Jesse Muleman Marshall, and today we've got the finals from SCGCon Las Vegas, the second Grand Contest of 2026, following on from the first Grand Contest in Washington, D.C., and if you haven't seen the finals video for that, you can check that out here. SCGCon Las Vegas Grand Contest featured 8 different avatars in the top 8, a fantastic metagame spread showcasing so much creativity in deck building and all of the wonder that Sorcery has to bring to the table. So here we're going to be seeing 2 players exhibiting their mastery of their decks in the very final match from SCGCon Las Vegas Grand Contest in 2026. Let's dive right in. So we have Abdul-Hakeem Russell here on the top of your screen playing Pathfinder, and Gwendolyn Miller on the bottom of your screen playing Sorcerer. Gwendolyn here rocking what is, in many ways, the progenitor of Sorcery, the original Sorcery avatar, the most iconic in Sorcerer. Great to see that making it all the way to the finals. And we've got Pathfinder at the top of the screen from Abdul-Hakeem, which is a bit of a metagame powerhouse at the moment. Pathfinder, of course, gaining advantage throughout the game, particularly in the early game, from not having to draw and play sites. So plenty of card advantage there at the expense of site selection. So we're seeing some mulligans happening here, and they're using the community format of second player seer in this event. So it looks like that is going to be taking place as well. On the top of your screen with Abdul-Hakeem, having a look at the top card of the spellbook, electing to put that back on top. And then it looks like we're away with Gwendolyn, presumably beginning the game here. So Gwendolyn electing to play a step and bringing the avatar in out of the void onto the step. So an earth fire indicator early on there, if Abdul-Hakeem wasn't aware what was coming from Sorcerer, because of course that is one of the advantages of playing Sorcerer, is it's a somewhat generic avatar in terms of elemental affinity, and you can play really any elements in Sorcerer and have success. But this with earth fire seems like it's probably going to be trying to come out of the gate strong and put some early pressure on, and then ride that double draw later in the game without having to play sites, which is a pretty classic way to try and leverage Sorcerer's ability. The downside, of course, being that you can't tap and play sites if you're tapping to draw a spell with Sorcerer. So Gwendolyn here looking like she's opting to play a deck that's pretty low to the ground. And Sister Stephania, a very powerful turn 2 play. There are a lot of minions in a Pathfinder list, particularly one that's playing fire, like Abdul-Hakeem's here, that are going to be relying on Genesis effects and others. Got a Redmane Hyena in hand that I can see already there. So Sister Stephania potentially shutting down some of those plays. Not that Redmane Hyena was online immediately here, but things like Violin or others that can interact early. Sister Stephania doing a great job of just locking down your opponent's board. And here a Wild Fanatic, which would have been able to charge. Not that that would have been terribly effective into Sister Stephania's ward, but if Sister Stephania wasn't there, then that would have been getting in for 2 damage from Abdul-Hakeem's side. So Gwendolyn really slowing things down there in terms of early pressure from Abdul-Hakeem. And we saw a Baba Yaga's Hut, which is an interesting site that Abdul-Hakeem put onto the middle square there, which we'll come back to in a moment. It looks like Sister Stephania is tapping. I'm not sure. The Sorcerer was tapping, not the Sister Stephania, to play the Rift Valley. So Rift Valley not being used there, one of the disadvantages to being on the play is a very small disadvantage, and that is that Rift Valley tends to be a little less impactful because the middle row tends to get filled up first, and then if your Rift Valley is your third of your opening sites, then it tends not to be able to be played for its ability. But the tempo of being on the play, always a good thing. So we saw a Crusade come down, and then Sister Stephania swinging in for 3, putting Abdul-Hakeem down to 17. So now, despite those nearby minions being silenced, there is the possibility here that Abdul-Hakeem could combine the attack from the Wild Fanatic to remove the ward, which we are seeing, with some kind of removal, firebolts or something similar, to get rid of the Sister Stephania entirely. But instead here we're seeing Mazu Jafrit as a turn 3 play. And I think that was a Horns of Behemoth as well that we're seeing as a site there. One of my favorite sites in Pathfinder. Pathfinder being one that can, as we were saying earlier, get a lot more sites onto the board. So if you can get up to 6 or 7 sites in play, 7 because we've got a Baba Yaga's Hut here, which is not giving fire affinity, then Horns of Behemoth can become online relatively easily for Pathfinder at a low cost. And getting a 6 power minion out of nowhere is a pretty big advantage to be able to get. So we're seeing here Sister Stephania moving back on Gwendolyn's turn out of range of the Mazu Jafrit. So because of Sister Stephania's silencing, Abdul-Hakeem is not going to lose life at the start of their turn, but they're also not going to be able to use the airborne ability to attack the Sister Stefania on the diagonal. So Sister Stefania moving back to a safer location, and then interestingly, no play here on turn 4. So that's not great for Gwendolyn. After coming out the gates with Sister Stefania into Crusade, now a bit of a defensive turn without adding to the board. So Plague Pit's coming down, but no minion, no other play. And that's not the end of the world for a Sorcerer list, because you can come out with tap to draw an extra spell next turn and potentially double spell on 4. But if Gwendolyn didn't have a play last turn, then she's very much at the mercy of the top of her deck here. And we're seeing a red cap parries come down on the outside side, not silenced by Sister Stefania because it's so far away. And then the Mazuja Frit, despite being silenced, can still come in for 4 directly onto the adjacent site there, the Rift Valley, without using the airborne ability. So in some ways, Sister Stefania here for Gwendolyn has negated the drawback of the Mazuja Frit. And because Gwendolyn played so wide to the left-hand side of the board there, outside the range of Sister Stefania, the Red Cap Parries was able to escape the Sister Stefania silencing effect and still get in with 3 damage with charge. So not a great turn cycle there for Gwendolyn, falling quite far behind now on 13 and also behind on the board, having to still tap to play another site, an Heirloom Lost, which is a great tech piece to deal with opposing sites that may be particularly impactful, but nothing in particular here that's doing that. So Gwendolyn just playing it as a thresholdless site. Asmodeus comes down on 5, again, outside the range of Sister Stefania, so not silenced. And Gwendolyn, I think, tossing up here whether to use that break stealth ability to kill the red cap parries, but then also kill her own site. Looks like electing not to do that. I would be torn if I was in Gwendolyn's seat. It's a really difficult call. You lose the stealth on the Asmodeus, which means that the Mazuja Frit could come in and attack it. You do kill the parries. You do kill one of your own sites, which also opens up a slightly different path for the Pathfinder, though I do doubt in some ways that the Pathfinder would take that path into the opposing corner and sort of get stuck there. So for 5 mana, I think probably would have liked to have used Asmodeus there, because it is in some ways a little bit free, as in, like, you still get the minion afterwards and you've got to take out the parries, even if you're taking out your own site, which is not ideal. Whereas now Asmodeus just has to block, which kind of means where it could have previously tangled with both minions, or even if Abdul-Hakeem decided to go off and attack the active volcano outside the range of Asmodeus' defending, at least you're left with a 3-power minion on the board. Right now, after a 5 mana investment, Gwendolyn's left with nothing after blocking the parries. So it's kind of, I guess, a question of whether you value the site on the board or the Asmodeus on the board more. That's really the trade that Gwendolyn had to decide. And I can understand preferring the site as Sorcerer, because more mana as you go later into the game means more plays that you can make using those draws that you're drawing. Or those cards that you're drawing, I should say. So the Sister Stefania still chipping in a bit of damage on the side. We've got a Redmane Hyena that's come down. We've got the Mazuja Frit sitting there threatening 4 damage every turn and having its downside really negated by Sister Stefania, as well as its airborne, but the downside really in this kind of race, that's 4 life that Abdul-Hakeem has saved now from the Sister Stefania silencing away the lose life ability. So very much leveraging the power of Sister Stefania on the opponent's side to his own advantage there. So well played by Abdul-Hakeem. Gwendolyn now has the option of attacking out of the Crusade onto the bonfire at the back of the board and causing the 2 life loss if she wants to. We're seeing a 4 Waters of Paradise into a Divine Healing, and if you are a deck that has surplus cards but potentially is going to be crunched on mana, then a card like 4 Waters of Paradise makes a lot of sense, letting you double draw with your Sorcerer and still make use of and leverage those cards at the top of the deck. Divine Healing, perhaps not the card that you want to be playing into. So Gwendolyn, I think here, the indication there when you've played a 4 Waters into a Divine Healing, which is obviously wasting a lot of that mana discount and not adding to the board, is that Gwendolyn does seem a little bit bricked on action cards, if you like, or on things that she can add to the board here. So Sister Stefania as well, staying within the Crusade to get that extra point of damage in. But yeah, I do query whether getting it out of the range of the Mazuja Frit at the start of the turn there by attacking back onto the bonfire would have actually dealt more damage, because it would have caused the 2 life loss. Giving back the airborne, I think probably not as relevant here. So Redmane Hyena coming in after the Mazuja Frit has come in with a Taurus Hammer Trinket. And then this is, if you're in Gwendolyn's seat and you're feeling a little bit behind on the board and you're hoping to double draw next turn and get back into the game, Infernal Legion is 100% not what you want to see. That's going to wipe out the Sister Stefania. It's going to do a range of damage to other things, but not hurt the Mazujafrit on Abdul-Hakeem's side. So it's presenting a lot of threat to any smaller minions that Gwendolyn is going to put down on her side of the board to try and defend. And it's also presenting a potential death blow as well. So Infernal Legion, definitely a powerful play. And we're waiting here on Gwendolyn's turn to see. I can't quite see what those cards are there in hand. Whether Gwendolyn has managed to draw into a bit more action, because it's really do or die here. This turn is crunch turn now. We've got a landmass, which is not the gas that you want to be seeing in terms of adding to the board. Unfortunately for Gwendolyn, I think she's drawn into a range of her enabler cards and not enough for her action. I can see is an Imperial Road in hand. Is it possibly an Order of the White Wing? It's a little hard to see those cards in hand there. But yes, drawing into Forward as a Paradise, Divine Healing, and Landmass on the turns where she was really looking to try and find some things to add to the board was not exactly what she wanted here. So we're seeing Imperial Road into Active Volcano, so getting quite a bit of mana down. But does Gwendolyn have the haymakers to be able to swing this game back in her favor? I mean, anything would be... There are plenty of spells, rather, that could be massive here. An Earthquake, she could move that Sister Stephania again back onto the bonfire, and then Earthquake away the Mazujafrit and the Infernal Legion. Of course, the Infernal Legion not doing its burn at the moment because of Sister Stephania's silencing, but if the Sister moved out of the way and then Earthquake occurred, then the Infernal Legion would be gone completely. So that would kind of resolve that issue and stop that threat. But looks like no Earthquake in hand. Of course, we can't always have Earthquake. Earthquake's a powerful way to turn the game back in your favor, but attacking now out of the bonfire onto the back row, trying to draw the Infernal Legion back. Abdul-Hakeem not taking the bait, staying focused on the objective. It is an Order of the White Wing that we're seeing coming down now. So now the 2 life loss occurring for Abdul-Hakeem. So even though Gwendolyn's quite far behind and has had a couple of turns without a lot of action, Abdul-Hakeem's still down to 7. So Gwendolyn's done a great job of still getting in a bunch of chip damage. Here again, getting 2 in with the Sister and then the 2 life loss from the Mazujafrit. So Abdul-Hakeem now has 6 mana available and has to really leverage that to get rid of that Order of the White Wing and ideally get Gwendolyn down to Death's Door this turn. That's not impossible now that the Sisters move back. The Infernal Legion's ability is active if it moves onto the active volcano, and it can pop the Sorcerer for 3 at the end of the turn. So there are a few options here. If you add up the math, it's going to be pretty hard for Gwendolyn to prevent the Death's Door. 2 damage coming in from the Red Mane Hyena. We're going to see 4 coming in from the Mazujafrit with the 1 from the Trinket, so 5. Putting Gwendolyn down to 2, and now there's really no way that Gwendolyn can avoid the 3 damage from the Infernal Legion, taking her Sorcerer down to Death's Door. Even if she defends here, it really is much of a muchness. She may as well go to Death's Door now, because she's otherwise going to go to Death's Door at the end of the turn and lose the Order of the White Wing, rather than just losing the ward on the Order. So I think the ward on the Order there does get removed at the end of that turn. Hopefully the players will notice that. The Taurus Hammer Trinket also going back. And Gwendolyn now really hoping that the top of the deck is going to... There goes that ward. The top of the deck is going to present an Earthquake, maybe enough. Like, she doesn't know. Anytime you're against fire, it's always difficult. She knows that one of Abdul-Hakeem's cards in hand is the Trinket, but she doesn't know if there's any other burn spells or other things that are going to allow him to finish her off at Death's Door. So if she can draw into Earthquake, draw into Poison Nova, really draw into anything to clear out those 2 large minions that have been causing her so many problems this game, then she at least has an avenue and a pathway to get back into this game and turn the game a little bit back in her favor. Especially because Abdul-Hakeem is actually quite close to Death's Door. So Arjaro Exorcist is relevant. You know, it's going to take out one of the 2 threats, but really it's that Infernal Legion that's the big threat. And now, with the Sister Stephania being on the back row, there's really no way that it can extend its range of effect far enough to enable the Infernal Legion to be silenced. while it's on top of the Sorcerer. So all Abdul-Hakeem really has to do here is move the Infernal Legion onto the back row. And it looks like Gwendolyn knows that. She's thinking about, is there a way I can leverage this crusade? Is there anything I can do to try and take out that Infernal Legion? But sadly, with the way that the units are positioned, the Infernal Legion's range is just so significant that even here, with both of those units being able to intercept a move, if the Infernal Legion moves back, the Exorcist and the Order are not going to have enough combined power to be able to do it. So we're seeing here Blaze of Glory is a finisher, a classic finisher out of Gothic, one that's finished many a game of sorcery with that nearby range and the ability to strike everything. The Infernal Legion takes out the Sorcerer in a Blaze of Glory indeed at the end of a grand contest. What a way to finish the event. Going out in a Blaze of Glory and taking victory home for Abdul-Hakeem and the Pathfinder. So fantastic match from our two competitors there. Thank you all for watching. It's really fantastic to see players of this caliber with sporting play, the handshake coming out there as well. Players of this caliber taking it all the way to the finals of a grand contest and exhibiting not only good sporting play, not only creativity in deck building. I mean, I don't know when the last time I saw a Waters of Paradise at the top tables of an event was, but it certainly fits right at home in this Sorcerer deck that Gwendolyn's brought. And of course, the style of finishing the game in a Blaze of Glory. What could be more sorcery than that in terms of giving us a story to walk away with? So that's our second grand contest for 2026 in the books. Congratulations to Abdul-Hakeem for taking home the victory. We do have more grand contest action coming to you very soon. We've got the Trolls of the Realm grand contest at Leeuwarden in the Netherlands happening today, in fact. We've got the grand contest in Melbourne, Australia coming up later in July. And then at the end of July, we've got the grand contest at Gen Con in Indianapolis. If you're in the region or looking to or able to go along to the Melbourne, Australia event or the Gen Con Indianapolis event, do head along to those. There are still tickets available. And throughout the rest of the realm, there are cornerstone events happening every weekend throughout the rest of the organized play season. So wherever you are, enjoy the Sorcery Organized play season and keep on contesting the realm. Take care.